Hello, my name is Chelsea Hester, and this is my video reflection on my personal teaching philosophy. I'd like to start this video by speaking about ways on which I've developed and grown throughout my student teaching experience. And I would really like to highlight on my clinical evaluations. So my clinical evaluations have allowed me to really think about how I can implement critical thinking and problem solving within each lesson. For example, my first clinical evaluation, I was able to give a lesson on protist and fungi and allowed students to work on a worksheet to practice what they had just learned. And after discussing with my mentor teacher and my GCU mentor, we wanted to see a little bit more critical thinking and problem solving implemented into my lessons. So I created these labs and I had both mentor teachers evaluate those activities for clinical evaluation 2 and 3. And I was able to get better results. Students were able to get out of their seats. They were able to follow step-by-step instructions, do a hands-on activity. They were able to analyze what they had just done and reflect also on their activity by writing what's called a claim, evidence, and reasoning. So they were able to practice those critical thinking and problem solving skills that my mentor teachers wanted to see. Also during the lab, whenever a student would have a question, I would always kind of help them, direct them towards their notes or my PowerPoint slides to help them answer their own question instead of me giving them the straightaway answer. So for example, like if a student had a question on, I don't know, like what is the type of fungi? And we'll be like, okay, well, we talked about this in lesson 1. Why don't you pull up your lesson 1 notes, find it, and then I'll circle around and come help you again. And usually when I circle back around, they usually find the right answer. Or if they didn't, then I would kind of just help them a little bit more, but I would never give them the answer right away. I would help them to figure it out on their own. That way they can develop those skills needed for success. The next point that I want to talk about is how technology can be used to create better learning opportunities for my students. All my students have an iPad and it has a direct source to their student portal as well as other learning apps needed to be successful in our school. And I think just having an iPad is a huge resource to have in terms of creating a better learning opportunity for students because they have access to learning resources at all times. So for example, my school is a college prep, like really highly just into athletics and also missions as well. So I have a lot of students who are gone all the time for games or practices or mission trips or just even away personally, like when they're sick or on family vacations. But I never have to worry about them like falling behind because they have access to everything wherever they are. They have access to my PowerPoint slides, their notes, their homework, the syllabus, videos, vocabulary words, et cetera, et cetera. So I think just having technology like that or having an iPad like that is really beneficial because everybody is still moving along together and no one's ever like falling behind, which I think is key to being successful as a class. And then also learning games. I feel like learning games via technology is it's a huge benefit for learning. I know Kahoot is definitely a fan favorite as well as mine. But I'm also learning more about Gimkit. I'm observing other teachers using Gimkit in their classes. So I'm really eager to implement that into my future lessons. But for now, Kahoot is just always the go-to learning game for my classes. And my students really love it because they get very competitive with each other. And I think they actually learn because, they want to win. They want to get the most points so that they can win like extra credit or like maybe a gift card. But it also benefits me because I'm able to see the results right away. Like I'm able to see like, oh, if students are actually getting it based on the number of answers or based on the number of corrected answers versus like, oh, if a majority of the students did not answer the question correctly, then I'm able to go over that content. Everybody can be on the same page. So those are some technologies that I think will benefit learning experience altogether. And then lastly, just certain strategies for implementing the Christian worldview within my classroom. Since I work at a Christian school, I have the opportunity to integrate my faith into my classroom practices. So for example, we just had a lesson on evolution, and I was able to talk about how, as Christians, we know that God had created the world because of Genesis 1:1. God created in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Like, we as Christians know how the world was created. But if we ever want to have a conversation with somebody who doesn't necessarily believe in what we believe, we need to understand where they're coming from and not be so one-sided. So it's always good to just have background on what somebody else might believe. That way we could have a healthy argument. So I like to talk about that for the evolution unit. That's just kind of an example. Another example is when we talk about biochemistry, more specifically about water. We talk about polarity and how water is a universal solvent, and just kind of talking about baptism in a sense, and how like water is a good resource to use for baptism in terms of symbolism, because it cleanses away our skins, and like I said, water is a universal solvent. So we have the opportunity to integrate our faith into some of our lessons, which is really great. But I kind of want to talk about compassion, because one day I might teach at a public school, and I'm not going to be able to share my Christian views like I do now in my classroom. So I do kind of want to talk about compassion, and just showing compassion and kindness for my students. So I feel like I can always show compassion the way Jesus would, by actively listening to what they have to say, and just always giving them like positive encouragement and just reinforcement, like especially when, they're not doing well in class. Like, it's always important to just, keep the positivity going and not, chastise them or like give them consequences or anything like that. And always also too, just like being respectful to my students, also my peers, and my colleagues, just always showing respect throughout the entire campus, and just kind of being aware of my students' feelings, and just trying to be compassionate in that way, so we can still maintain that great relationship. And also forgiveness as well. Jesus had died for our sins, so that we can be forgiven for our sins. So I feel like I can do the same thing with my students. I think it's good to reiterate, like, okay, like, you made this mistake, and, you cheated on this test, and, I'm not blaming you as a person, or I don't think you're an ill will person. I think you made a bad choice, but I'm going to forgive you, and we can move forward from this and learn from this mistake so it doesn't happen again. So those are just a couple things on ways that I can show compassion for my students. And I feel that could definitely resemble the Christian behavior, and just resemble more of who Jesus is, and just kind of putting that Christian worldview value into my classroom at all times. Thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. Have a great day. Bye-bye.